Okay. Just for the record, ONNX Edge Working Group meeting, July 24th. We have 3 participants as of now. Milan, that's me, Ofer, Rosenberg, and Yedong. So we're gonna go through the agenda that as published last week. Let me quickly take a few minutes just to close on previous action items, which was about accepting and accepting the edge profile definition thing that we
Milan, can you share your screen? Oh yeah, I can see.
Yeah. So this one is like I'm basically I'm gonna officially close this issue after this meeting, and based on this discussion here, everybody replied yes, yes, yes. So officially, I think we accepted this document to be published. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move this document and associated pictures or drawings into the artifacts folder, right? So that I think we agreed that that is the folder where we are gonna be publish whatever we decide to publish. So I'll copy them from the discussion material into the artifacts folder, and then make it that way. So just quick update, and then going back to the agenda for today. Yeah, we have this. We know we are going to go through the prototype profile, or proposal on how profile definition should look like, and what information should it contain, and and potentially have that as a template that we can use for other profiles, right? So in general today, that is going to be dominant or main discussion. Ofer will drive with some prototype profile definition he has, and then we'll talk about it and see where we end up, and about the next steps after we finish today's meeting. Sounds good? Okay. So then I guess Ofer, you will take the share, or should I give it to you? I don't know.
I think I can share. So before doing that, do you want to add something or discuss something else?
No.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, in terms of agenda, definitely, yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can take the screen then, Ofer.
Okay.
Do I need to stop sharing, or you can just start sharing? I don't know.
I think tell me if you see my screen.
Not yet. I mean, let me stop sharing for a while. Okay, I stopped sharing, so now you start share. I don't know. Okay, yeah. I can see it now.
Okay, so you're supposed to see. Oh. Okay. Okay, so I'm using a site called Markdown Editor to show the MD file that I've been working on. I hope you can see it.
Yeah.
So the idea is I focused on one profile, and I more tried to think of what needs to be in a document that describes a profile. So as I'm going through describing the profile, I think one of the things that we should kind of think of or comment on is as a template, does this thing looks good? Are we missing additional chapters? Is the existing chapters looks okay? So what I try to do, I try to describe is an IoT device that is stationary, meaning it's not moving, and it has input and output of audio and video. So this is stationary IoT device with AV is the profile name. Actually, I don't know, maybe we should put it in some kind of a brackets to make that clearer.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about profile after AV. Yeah, that's good. Maybe you just call it ONNX Edge profile and then colon stationary IoT device with AV. And just, meaning like, you know what I mean?
No.
ONNX Edge, title, ONNX Edge profile, colon.
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a way to do
just
something like that?
Yeah.
Is there a way to do subtitles in? No, there isn't probably.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's just, there's no, your next introduction is a subtitle technically. So
Yes. Yeah, but I meant other than section header.
that's fine. I mean, maybe we can dial it in. You could have a subtitle just called name, and then call it input just stationary IoT device with AV.
Well,
yeah. So it is technicality. Maybe we should dial in. We don't need to maybe spend time on it right now.
Yeah. So again, this is also trying to show some kind of a template.
Yes.
So
I agree.
The first chapter, the introduction, is very short and just says, so the idea is to have
sorry. By the way, above, instead of comma, I thought colon. Colon instead of comma, just like, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, okay.
Okay, so I thought that it should start with a short description, a high-level description of what this profile contains, trying to describe in very general terms what's the family of devices that this profile is trying to cover. More than the 4 or 5 lines that describe the profile. This is the description of the profile in a few sentences. So the family of edge devices covered by these profiles are devices that remain in the same location. So I'm thinking about devices that don't move. They're IoT devices that remain in the same location, constantly connected to the web. Oh, there's a typo here. And they do have audio and video interfaces. I was also considering constantly connected to power as another way to describe these devices. Before diving into the description, I just want to go into the next chapter that talks about the examples so that you can have a better understanding of what's the family of devices that I was trying to cover. So this next section is giving a few examples, and I think based on the examples, you can get a better understanding of what's the classification of devices that I try to capture. So the first device is an IP security camera. This is, of course, usually a stationary device fixed to a wall or placed on some furniture or whatever. It has a video input. web connectivity, constantly remote connected to a power source. I think in most cases of IP camera, the processing is done locally. When we talk about locality of data. So IP security camera is broadcasting back, as far as I know, pictures or short video sequences, but it doesn't broadcast continuously the video stream back. This is, I think there used to be a period of time in the history that IP camera was just taking the video, compressing it to digital format and sending it over IP. What they're doing today, they already let the IP camera to broadcast back only sections which are highly important in a sense. Sections where the camera detected some movement or some changes, stuff like that. So as far as I know, the processing is locally done. Another example to this family is a smart speaker. Think of Alexa Echo or Google Home. And the third example is a smart display, which is the same family of devices, but has a video input and output. Both smart speaker and smart display are constantly connected to the web, and they're different from IP security camera as they usually have a hybrid processing model. This device is processing some of the network, but it passes down results back to the cloud, and the cloud continues processing. So these are examples to this profile. Things that I don't want to cover are devices which are like, okay, so another aspect of this profile, these devices are usually small and low in energy. So this profile is not trying to cover some kind of an infrastructure edge server, or not trying to cover mobile phones. Both the power requirements, memory requirements, and the rest of it are below what a mobile phone is. These are more simplified devices. So,
okay. I mean, in general, I guess in agreement, this is something that we need to decide is exactly what kind of families or what kind of composite, because this is also a composite device, right? It has multiple capabilities, and we need to dial in, I think, onto the granularity of these profiles, right? How we want to group them, right? So for one, for now, it seems okay. I mean, the only thing is that should we, maybe that's like note to ourselves, should this device or profile be, should we lump audio and video together, or should there be only audio device, right? And things like that. Because in some cases, audio and video, you know, technically may have significantly different use cases and sort of processing requirements, and you know, potentially we need to think about if we need to have profiles just for audio devices. But
yeah, I tend to agree, because if I well,
let's go on. Let's go on. Maybe you'll you know, just a note for now.
Yeah, I'm just, if you look at the list of models, for example, then IP security camera is definitely not going to pass the NNP modems that you're going to give it. And a smart speaker cannot do classification of video. So if you think of it in terms of a profile is mapped to a list of networks that it has to pass, then I agree. Definitely, you want to separate between video processing modems and audio processing modems for separated classes. I agree on that. Yeah, I was just trying to look more into the shape of the description of the profile rather than into the details.
Yeah. That's good.
So, Idon, Gazi, any feedback so far?
No, pretty good.
Okay, thanks. So the next section is looking at the attributes that we described in the document, and here is I'm mapping the attributes into what this device is capable to do. So accuracy is a challenging section because I wanted maybe to open it up for a short discussion. Accuracy is going to talk about, first of all, it's going to talk about the models that we want this device to answer. So I was asking myself, should the accuracy section contain a table that kind of goes through the models, a list of models, and for each model gives accuracy? Looks to me that that should be the approach if we talk about, we're not talking about a general accuracy, but we talk about accuracy of selected subset of models.
Yes. Yeah, so this section was left from the just general kind of, you didn't change anything here from the section in the document just describing the accuracy.
Yeah, I was like,
I get it. I mean, I think if we connect this with
this was supposed to be something like this.
Yeah. If you connect this with our, I guess, discussions about having, something define the compliance, right? Then specking out the actual models and their expected accuracy seems like necessary if you want to go in that direction. I'm not sure if we need to in here. This is where I was struggling a little bit. We talked about two separate things, that define profiles with operators and belonging use cases, but then also talked about separate document about in terms of defining the compliance for the profile. I'm perfectly fine if you combine, I guess, two together, because if you define accuracy for the models or range of the accuracies, because we said we should focus on the ranges of the values, not necessarily specific accuracy, right?
Okay, so I sent it, so in the accuracy, so it can be like, okay, so option one, table pair model, and option two is to have a sentence Something like this. Um, I don't know. Let's think about percentage. That something that.
I think those are super small for top 1 and top 5. I think, but maybe for top 5 not. But for top 1, I don't know. We need. This is totally model.
I'm just writing numbers,
Yeah,
just
it's
to
fine.
describe. Let's see, maybe 0.2 on. To have a general sentence that says something like, for 80% of the tested models to allow some deviation. Accuracy, so we say that the metrics are top 1, top 5, and map. This is good for video. I don't know. We need to think of, I don't know what's the metric for audio. Right now, top of my head, I recall there is a metric for audio. Separated metric for NMP.
Well, yeah, I'm not 100% sure either. In general sense, and actually for video, it also depends what metric do you use. We have to be, what use case, if it's a semantic segmentation or if it's a object detection, there are different precision metrics used, like IOU,
Yeah, so this is why I wrote here classification models.
Yeah.
So we can add additional sentences for segmentation. We can add another sentence for speech recognition metrics. But I think, so the question is, should we go for the option 2, which is writing this kind of general sentences, and then another document will come and describe. Actually, you don't need another document.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I started saying that we did discuss having a document about compliance, but then again, if you define these profiles technically, you could define parameters of compliance right here. If we are already spelling out models that we want to kind of require as supported models, right? So, we can combine the two. Actually, I was thinking option 1 may be better. You have a table, just say min max, right? And which type of accuracy, and maybe just simpler to.
Okay. But still not discuss models specifically, but discuss types of models. Classification, segmentation.
Oh, well, no. In that case, yeah, I was thinking we will have, we would use the define specific models here. If we go with the option 1 table and specify, then it has to be like specific, right, for which model. In that case, we combine the profile definition with the also compliance, parameters. Not fully, because we are defining just the models and the expected metrics. You need to define sort of the compliance framework. Maybe that's a separate document that needs to happen, like what is the compliance. But again, this is not something we need to define necessarily. I'm guessing we could work with infra sig, because they are in charge of infrastructure and compliance. and so then they will have to define that framework for the compliance. Here, maybe does it make sense to define specific models if the compliance framework is not defined? That's my
yes. My answer, by the way, would be yes, because where you describe use cases.
Yeah, well then in that case, fine. The only thing is like it's specifying accuracy. The expectations is whether that's totally okay without having compliance framework defined. But again, these numbers could be adjusted once maybe we have more clarity on compliance framework. I mean, but we could start with something, but which seems reasonable.
So maybe what I suggest is that here in this section, there's going to be wording, and later on there is a chapter that is dedicated to the models. On that chapter, we can have a table.
Okay.
Not only writing down the models, but to the side of the model name, you can have another tab that has the accuracy, another column of expected accuracy, and maybe another column of expected latency.
Yeah.
And
okay, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Okay,
so this is accuracy. So example for size. So the minimum, this is kind of laying out the minimum requirements of size is to have 2 gigabytes of DRAM and 8 gigabytes of storage room. Surprisingly, by the way, this is the spec of, I think, one of the, either Amazon Echo or Google Home Speaker. This is what they have. So it's kind of a realistic look at the size. Of course, we can modify that. In terms of latency, I was trying to think of use cases which make sense, like requirements that would make sense in terms of the use cases. So classification should be able to follow something like 30 FPS rate.
So is that we are saying latency of the network inference, or well, there is a I guess there is a surrounding around the inference, like as we know, pre-processing, post-processing, and all that stuff. So we should not try to accommodate for that. I mean, you're saying here is less than 33, fitting 30 frames per second, but then end to end, if you wish, frames per second, maybe less than that because of the pre-processing and post-processing aspects, right? But
so we can reduce the number to 25 and say that it fits 30 FPS plus overhead. Yeah, I'm just trying to explain that the latency number, in my view, should come from, when we describe the latency, we should kind of say, why do we chose a specific number? Not just say, oh, it's 15 milliseconds just because. This is a case that you can actually see that there is different requirement for input of video versus input of audio, and I guess accuracy will have the same, which is more driving to what you mentioned earlier, that maybe we should separate it to separated profiles. It's possible.
Yeah.
Power consumption. So again, this is kind of realistic numbers. But overall, the idea is that this is a small form factor, low power IoT device. So it should consume small number of watts when it processes the model. Talking about compliance, this is actually a very easy way to test in that specific device, if it's connected always to power, you just measure. The idea is to say we expect a certain amount of the modems to be within some envelope, and we're now a maximum. So there might be some modem that causes that device to go above this typical power consumption, but it shouldn't go above the maximum. And the motivation here is to, we talked about it, that if we require some accuracy, size, latency, all of this also comes into power consumption. Of course, I can meet a very low latency with a device that consumes 10 watt or 25 or 100, but this is not what we want. We want to describe a device that is a small scale factor IoT device.
Okay, makes sense to me.
You don't get any comments?
Pretty good here. Continue.
Okay. So data locality is, when I'm re-looking at it, it actually, I definitely agree with your observation, Milan, that we need to separate it. You can clearly see on each chapter where it separates itself. So video classification, here it's fully done on the device, and audio modems expected to be in a hybrid mode.
Why is that? Why do you want to have it in hybrid mode?
Because this is how these devices work. It can be a combination. It can be, you can see cases of devices that process some of it on the device. The idea is that these devices are not meant or designed to do full speech processing on the device, not in their envelope of accuracy, size, latency, power consumption. So under that envelope, they cannot do a full-scale NNP processing. They have to consult with the cloud.
Okay.
If you disconnect an Amazon Echo.
I know that. I'm just saying that in that context, that's what is today. It doesn't mean it won't be tomorrow. Like that you will have a sort of a full localized NLP. But anyway,
that would be a different profile. A profile of device that can do speech recognition completely on the device would be a different profile in a sense. This device can do speech identification in order to wake up from low power. So identifying that there is a speech in the directed to him, like identifying the keyword Alexa or hello Google, yes, this is done on device. But now that you ask the device a question, it would not parse your sentence completely on the device.
Right, I get that. So yeah, to your, again, coming back to the fact that we may want to break this into separate profiles, audio and video for one. Similar aspect, I guess, or comment could be made for a video, right? I mean, in terms of the hybrid mode, you could think of this device or some say security camera. It could be part of the processing being done in the cloud as well, right? Or on the infrastructure edge versus like on device. So I mean,
yeah, that's true. But the thing is that, I agree. but at least the trend that I'm familiar with today, because of cost, they just pack the processing inside. And
Okay. Well, I think
it can be something like, I'm thinking about it. It can be something like level 1, level 2. Maybe instead of creating a profiliation of dozens of profiles, you can have a profile, and inside the profile, you can describe
yes.
levels.
Yeah. Actually, I was actually. So that connects me with something we touched on a while back, which was like thinking like about the sort of composite profile, right? You have and so maybe that connects with your thinking about levels, where you could specify a family, right? Profile family, and then you have sort of sub profiles or levels. But then again, there could be many combinations there. Right? If you start thinking about mixing and matching data locality versus accuracy versus the audio video, right? So it could be many sub levels, right? But it's something that we should think about, because how do we structure this, right? Hierarchically speaking. We could go thousands of small profiles, or focus on families of devices, and then have subfamilies and then sub profile, right? Maybe that is more natural way of breaking this or defining this. I agree that something definitely we should think about. What do you think, Ilan? You don't?
Yeah, hi, I'm here.
So we were just talking about somewhat about how to structure these profile definitions, and should we go by hierarchical, so that you have the top level profile family, and then you have sub profiles or levels underneath, or should we
Hierarchy of what?
of edge device profiles?
For example.
For example, you have even in this example, you have the profile that describes the family of products, family of devices. Technically speaking, I mean, it can, it combines variety of use cases and models and audio and video together, and data locality in terms of processing locally versus locally and in the cloud. So this is all currently kind of described in this one profile. So we were talking about maybe this profile definition. It's really a top level family of the edge device, and then you have a sub profiles that fit or break it down into more kind of specialized use cases of that family.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it easier in terms of terminology, that we can talk about some family name, let's say a stationary IoT with video input, and then level 1, level 2, level 3, instead of trying to come up with different names for each one of these stationary IoTs with video inputs. Classify all of them under that family, and just have level 1. Like, for example, level 1 has just basic motion detection kind of thing, and he sends most of the processing back. And level 2 has like segmentation and object, like some level of classification, human, car, something else. And level 3 is doing something more complex, combines audio, for example. Anyways, we can think of this.
We should think about that, yeah.
Okay, good. So just to finish that document, so the previous section was about profile attributes, and now there's additional 2 sections. One of them is a list of required networks. This is kind of, I just put a placeholder there. And now that we talk about levels, then of course that would be broken down to levels. But the idea is to provide a list of which networks, and this networks has to come from ONNX Modern Zoo. I think one of the things that we should probably talk about is that we try to, as much as possible, provide things which are part of the modern zoo that are suitable to the devices. If we find that we need another model, that means it needs to be added to the zoo. I think as a guideline, we shouldn't, when we come up releasing these profiles and compliance testing, it should only refer to models which are in the zoo. So part of this work also needs to be a list of models that should be added to the zoo.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that will be our guidance to the SIGs, right?
Yes, but in general, we're not going to keep another location where we keep the models. If we need a model for compliance of some profile, it needs to be in the zoo.
Okay. So then the ONNX operations will be
the operation. Yes. Operations is kind of derivative from the previous section. So it's more of a summary list for convenience, so that if someone reads the profile, he would understand which operations need to be supported, operations and attributes of the operations covered by the networks that needs to be passed. So this is, you can think of it, it's a redundant section because everything is in the networks, but if you don't want to dive into each one of the networks, you just want to have a quick view of the operations, this is the section.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. So
I think the question here to me is, should we add additional sections? Is there something missing here? We talked about levels. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, I don't know. Milan, do you see any section that should be added to further describe the profile?
Right now, I don't. I think this should be. I mean, again, details about the the operators and the metrics you want to meet, like KPIs, so to speak. I think those are the key things here. So to me, for now, seems fine as a template. Again, you know, as you start going through the stuff, you may alter a little bit, but I think as a starting point, it seems okay. Yadong, what do you say?
Pretty good job.
I think it's the first time that I'm showing it, so probably it requires kind of a few days to think about it.
Yeah.
So let me. So maybe we have a few more minutes, and I have to kind of finish 5 minutes before because I have to. Sorry, I should have said that before. I need to get into the other meeting. But the thing is, so action items, right, and next steps. So I guess we want to put this into the discussion material, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a document we discussed, and we can also further comment on. So that will be action item 1. Action item 2. I've started thinking now when we start talking about this levels and how do we hierarchy and all that stuff. And so I was wondering, would it be beneficial that we start try to define this? So this is a template for individual profile. Should we try to define top level map of sort of, okay, here's the family we want to have, and here are the levels of that family, and have this kind of top level view of the type of devices and use cases we want to cover in general. So this discussion today is about the template, which is very valuable, but then also we need to decide what other profiles we want to do, right? So that's why I was thinking maybe that kind of top level map might be useful for us.
Mm-hmm.
And
so maybe when you want to create this kind of top level map, you have a sorry, you have another document that just takes these first 2 chapters, the introduction and profile example, and just put one of these for each profile. So I have a profile and I'm giving the examples under this profile, not the full,
okay, yeah,
not the full details, just the examples and the high-level description, and duplicate it for each profile.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So there'll be a challenge. You know what I'm looking at right now? I'm looking at our drawing of the cloud. The drawing we put in the document about the scope and edge profile definition, and there is that drawing about the. Actually, let me share. See this, guys? You see this? I mean, you know the picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you think about it, like so the profile we just discussed about right now, the highest, the basic categorization may be that from starting from the top. Maybe you have edge devices, you have edge infrastructure. Perhaps that is the hierarchy of the profile definitions we should start with, right? I mean, in the end, if I talk about the smart speaker is where? Here, here, I guess. But then, audio video capabilities and all that stuff, right? I mean, you could have that in a car. You could have that in a laptop. You could have that actually in a smartphone. So all this really, I mean, if you think about the use case, what are the differences? You have stationary versus non-stationary, right?
The difference is use cases. The difference is that I'm not asking a car to do some things that, okay, a car is not a good example because it requires a lot, but kind of the opposite example. I'm not asking an IP camera to do something that a smartphone can do. Because an IP camera costs $50 and the smartphone costs more, and IP camera has fixed power supply and fixed network connection, and the mobile device doesn't. Oh, mobile is a problem. Mobile can do everything.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a huge difference between a drone and an IP camera, in a sense.
There is, but each of them have, technically you could say, have video capabilities, and they have classification use cases or object detection use cases that apply to all of them, right? Car has object detection, a drone has object detection, whatever, IP camera has object detection. So all these have object detection use cases, right? In that sense, maybe they could have different accuracy requirements or different, yeah, maybe that's it. Definitely there are differences in terms of the power, however, consumption, for example, or the available storage, or yeah. So I'm just testing. I'm testing the trying to test the profile definition and how we would structure this, right? If we are going to start creating this map of the profile families, would it make sense to have profile families divided according to these two circles, right? And then go further down. It's just something that I was just thinking about.
Okay, I think we're slightly running out of time, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so
it's a point to think about. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so for action item for next time, I guess, I would say try and have a document proposing this high-level, top-level map of the profiles, and how and sub-levels and all that. So I will take that action item on myself, to have something for next time to discuss, and hopefully with that, and maybe with further discussion on a template and a profile definition, we could start having people filling the blanks, so to speak. Okay, that sounds good, Yadam?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, well, that's it for today then. Thanks all for presenting and going through the prototype.
Sure.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.